me, my name is Jean-Marc Jancovici. I'm president of the Shift project, and I'm one of the co-organizers of this seminar. And I will have the tremendous task of chairing this morning. So if I have understood correctly, that means turning off the microphone after 40 minutes for everybody who's going to talk. The first speaker of the morning is Gael Giraud, sitting in front of me. So Gael is, I don't know what it is in English, directeur de recherche?
Senior researcher.
Senior researcher. CNRS in France. His field of expertise is economics, the Bible, can I say that? No? And finance. And this morning, he's going to give a first talk. He's going to give a second one tomorrow. So I'm going to let you exactly 40 minutes. So at 9:45, you're done with it. Gael, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Does it work?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So thank you for the invitation. So my talk will have three parts. Actually, one part I will say a few words about financial markets. The second part I will say a few words about money creation. And the third part will be about an innovative financing process that I suggested last year, being a member of the committee for the debate on the national debate on the energy shift in France. So I was member of this committee that was already mentioned 2 days ago. And I made a proposal for the financing of the retrofitting of public buildings in France. And this will be the last part of my talk. I will present the rough idea of this financing process. Is that clear? So first part, a few words about financial markets. Why? Because there are a couple of people who believe that we should not worry about the financing of the energy shift. Financial markets will take care of it, and we just have to wait. Since they are supposed to be efficient, one day they will understand that it's very important to put money in the energy shift, and when they will realize it, they will manage the whole process. I just want to spend a few seconds saying that this is entirely false. There is no hope for that, and this is even a wisdom, a completely traditional wisdom of the most conventional part of economic theory. So we know since 1986 at least, even within the core, the core theory of neoclassical economics, the most conventional one, that is the most favorable one to markets, that markets are inefficient. What's the main argument? So suppose you have complete markets. What is a complete market? It's a market where everybody can insure himself or herself against any risk. So whatever being the risk you are facing, there is a financial instrument available on the market that allows you to insure yourself against this risk. Let's say exchange rate risk, meteorological risk, climate risk, everything. Provided markets are complete, then we have a proof, a mathematical proof since the 50s, that every equilibrium on this market will be Pareto efficient, meaning there is no available reallocation of resources that will make everybody at least weakly better off and at least one guy strictly better off, which is the precise definition of Pareto efficiency in the meaning of economists. Is that clear? So if markets are complete, then in a sense, every equilibrium on this market should be efficient, at least according to the theory. Yeah?
Does this mean that there is a unique solution?
No, there is no uniqueness.
The guy who's very well off, that can be anybody?
Yeah.
So there are many solutions
Yeah.
that are equivalent?
Well, in a sense, yes, you're right. Yeah. Now the question is, and this was understood in the 50s as being a proof, a mathematical proof of the existence of the invisible hand of Adam Smith. Okay? Provided markets are complete, then the invisible hand exists and it works well, and we should be confident. And okay. So the question is.
Every actor has perfect foresight.
Yeah, sure. I don't even enter into this kind of. Okay, I will mention this tomorrow. So now my question is: do you believe that markets are complete? Answer: no, for sure. There are a lot of risks against which it's impossible to insure yourself. Okay, and the bad news for, let's say, for believers in market, is that we know since the 80s that as soon as markets are incomplete, whatever being the size of incompleteness, then almost every equilibrium, in the sense of measure theory, okay, almost every equilibrium will be very, very inefficient. Very inefficient, okay? Then the question is, I go, okay, do you think that markets are complete? So they are not. So too bad, the invisible hand is invisible because it does not exist. Then when you explain this to financial people who did mathematics when they were young, they understand it. And then they say, well, we are perfectly aware of it, but our job is to create new financial assets that reduce market incompleteness, okay? We are helping people insure themselves against new risks, and our job is exactly financial innovation. Financial innovation is the reduction of market incompleteness. Question, does financial innovation reduce the inefficiency of markets? And the answer is not necessarily. It depends. You have good financial innovation and bad financial innovation. This is a result from the 90s. Okay? Unless the financial asset you create this morning is the ultimate one, which enables markets to be definitely complete. Then, under this assumption, of course, your innovation will be Pareto improving, will improve definitely the efficiency of markets, but you understand that this will just happen at the end of the history of mankind. Okay? This is a kind of eschatological viewpoint, okay? But today, we have no hint about the ability of financial innovation to improve the efficiency of markets. Is that clear? And I stress that this is known, this should be known from every economist who studied in the university. Unfortunately, not every economist tells this when he speaks about markets. The second point, so the main message is markets are definitely inefficient and we should not be confident that they will solve any problem, including the energy shift. Second point, do markets provide prices that convey any information? Sometimes you hear people saying, well, we should just wait that the carbon market behaves in a better way and it will provide the right price for the carbon, okay? And this makes sense only under the assumption that markets yield equilibrium prices that convey information. This is also entirely wrong, according to my viewpoint. And here is an argument. Most of finance theory assumes that market prices are martingales, that is, stochastic processes that are such that the best predictor of tomorrow's prices is the price today, roughly speaking. Okay? Then the question is, suppose you have a martingale that follows a trend that is an exponential trend like this. Of course, you don't observe the trend, you just observe the realization of one trajectory of the martingale. And if everything is correct, if everything is nice, doing some statistics, observing the trajectory, you should be able to guess the trend, the underlying trend of the martingale. In this case, prices do convey some information, namely just a trend. Okay? Martingale is a stochastic process that is such that the best predictor of tomorrow's prices is today's prices. Okay? But it may be the case that you have a non-uniformly integrable martingale, which is such that despite the fact that the trend is this one, okay, you may have plenty of trajectories that go this way. Now, if you observe this realization of this martingale, how can you guess that the trend is this one? Okay, no way. So this means that for market prices to convey any information, you need very, very strong assumptions such as the uniform integrability of every stochastic process that appears on markets. And I don't know any theory that ensures this. Okay? So second message, prices, market prices don't convey any information. This is just a fiction. Now, I don't have time to, okay. The second part of my talk is about the mystery of money, because, you know, there's a huge literature on what money does and where it comes from. So first, this is the evolution of M0. M0 is the monetary basis. That is the money that is created by the central banks. which is a money that none of you, including myself, ever saw, because we are not bankers. Okay? In our economy, we are dealing with M1, M2, M3, which are derived monies created by the private banks, and on the top of this, there is M0, which is the central bank money used only by banks. Okay? So this is M0, so the monetary basis. In the US, Eurozone, UK, and Japan together from the beginning of this century until today. And the main point is that you see that there is an increase, a significant increase until the crisis, 2008. And here you have the quantitative easing monetary policies that you have heard. Okay? So a huge increase of the quantity of money created by the central banks in the interbank market. But the point is that this increase already started earlier. It's only there is just an acceleration, okay? Here the growth rate was approximately 15% each year, and now it's 30% each year if you draw this line, okay?
Can you define what you're plotting?
Can
you define what is being graphed?
This is the quantity of money.
That's in the world? The total amount?
No. US, Eurozone, UK, Japan. Okay?
Excuse me, what is the unit?
Billions of euros. Billions of euros. Billions. En billions d'euros. Yeah, milliards. Milliards. Yeah, billions of euros. Okay?
Thousands of millions. It's said.
5 000.
Yeah, it's 10 to the 12.
10 to the 12, yes.
Billions of billions.
Okay? Okay. Okay. Million, milliard. Or say in English, we say trillions. Trillions in English. Yes? Okay. Yeah. Okay? So billions in French and trillions in English. Okay? Now, here is M1. Sorry. So here is M1, which is the money created by the private banks. And so you see Eurozone is this one, this is Eurozone, this is Japan, this is UK, and no, sorry, this was US, Eurozone, Japan, UK, okay? And it starts from 1990. So first thing, you see that it depends across the country. It's not the same across countries. Second, the growth rate is not to be compared with the growth rate of M0, okay? It's much slower, at least here, for instance, in the US and the Eurozone, okay? Which means that there is no clear relationship between M0 and M1. So the central bank creates a lot of money, but it might be the case that the banks don't use this money to create money for us. They keep the central bank money. It's possible. You get it? I will, for the banks?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I will answer to this later on, okay? Now, there are a lot of misunderstandings regarding money creation because there is a traditional presentation of this topic, in textbooks in the university, which is, according to me, entirely wrong, and which is the following. It's the topic of the monetary multiplier. So the idea is the following. The central bank creates money, let's say 100, lends this money to the bank B, private bank. Then the private bank is asked to keep a fraction of this quantity as a mandatory reserve, okay, and lends the rest to the economy. Of course, when Bank B lends it to the economy, it lends in another bank. The other bank will lend it to another bank, etc. So the second bank, C, keeps again this fraction of the money it received from the first bank, lends this, okay, and at the end of the day, the whole banking sector should create this, okay, this is just the sum of the geometric series, okay? Now what is the ratio K? K in the Eurozone is now 1%. It used to be 2%, but now it's 1%. In the US it's 4, Sweden 0. In China it changes because Chinese authorities play with it, and I think they're right. Because you understand that if you increase K, then you make it more difficult for banks to create money, okay? So this is the traditional way people understand when they are taught this in the university, people understand how money is created by banks, okay? But I insist that this is entirely wrong. Why? An example. In the 30s in Chicago, you had Irving Fisher. Now, and 20 years later, the young Milton Friedman. At the same time, the French guy Maurice Allais. And nowadays, someone like Michael Kumhoff in IMF, who claimed that we should fix K equal to 100%. There is a percent missing here. But if you understand that if you believe in the story I just told you, if you put K equal 100%, the bank cannot do anything with the money lent by the central bank. It makes no sense. The central bank gives 100 to the bank, and the bank has to keep 100 in its balance sheet. Cannot do anything with it. So the question is, were all these people entirely crazy? Or is the traditional story entirely wrong? Another question, can we empirically measure rho, which is this? Okay? So since I have to go very quickly, let me show you this, which was one of the first hints, quantitative hints that the whole story is wrong, which was made by Kidland and Prescott, two American people. Wait, the following one is more interesting. Okay. So here you have the GNP, and here you have M0. And the point is, which change precedes the other? It's exactly the same question as the question of, does temperature change before the increase of CO2 concentration, or is it the opposite? Which is, as you know, one way to understand whether climate change has a human origin or not. So here it's the same topic, and here you see that if you take M0 changes after GNP. The national gross product, okay? You can think of it as GDP. It's not the same, but okay. So it's impossible to say that at the beginning of the history there is a change in M0, and after that there will be a change in the real economy. It goes the other way. First you have a change in the real economy, and then M0 changes. M0 adapts itself to the change in the real economy. But if you believe in the story I just told you, you may ask the question, but where do people find the money to make these change? Okay? Makes no sense. So if now you take M1, it's a little bit different. It's almost simultaneous. You see, roughly speaking. So M1 changes approximately simultaneously with the GNP.
Well, not at the end.
Not at the end, I agree. It's not entirely, okay? Now if you take M2, you see that M2 precedes the change in the GNP. Okay? But M2, which is a large set of money created by the private banks, it's created by the private banks, not by the central bank. That's the main point. So the point is that banks are allowed to create money without asking anything to the central bank, and afterwards the central bank adapts M0 to the changes in money created by the private banks. You see it? Okay? And then this was the main message of these two guys. Okay. Then, so what happens in real life? In real life, Bank A, a private bank, creates 100 as a loan to, say, household H. Okay? Household H has its own bank account in Bank B. At the same time, or in the same week, Bank B creates, say, 150 as a loan to some corporate whose banking account is in Bank A. Okay, so there is 100 from A to B and 150 from B to A. Okay, then at the end of this week, Bank B needs to transfer 50 to A, 150 minus 100, and has to keep this according to the reserve ratio, you remember, in its balance sheet. Okay? So hence, B needs to find 50 to give to A, plus this reserve minus 100, because B received 100 from A at the beginning of the week. So B has to find this. Okay? Usually K is very, very small, okay, as I told you, 1%. And if you take into account all the transactions among banks, even this amount is a tiny amount. Okay? because the banking sector is very concentrated. Let's say in France you have essentially 4 big banks, okay? And so when one bank gives a loan to someone, there's a huge probability that the bank of this someone will make a loan to the first bank at the same time, roughly speaking, or in the same week. So the net position between the banks is very small. Nevertheless,
When you
bank...
say foggy, because it looks like it's a negative number.
Sorry? Yeah, if it's negative, the bank has nothing to do. Sure, okay, I should put a plus somewhere. The positive part of this, okay? Sure. So if it's positive, bank B has to find this money. And this money is central bank money, okay? Central bank money is used to clear the net positions among the banks, okay? 3 options are available to bank B. Either bank B goes to the interbank market, that is, it goes to the interbank market and asks a friend, another bank, to lend to B the money that B needs to give to A. Okay? That's the role of the interbank market. Or it goes, yeah.
How can it ever be positive? I'm going back to the question.
Okay.
Case law, how can it ever be positive?
Yeah, because, no, but you're right. In this this stupid example, it's negative, sure. You're right. Okay, here I need K to be greater than 1/3 for it to be positive. So this night I didn't have time enough to think of, so, but you can take other figures so that it's positive. Okay, it's not an issue. So first solution, the bank B goes to the interbank market, borrow the money that it has to give to bank A, or it goes to the financial market, does the same, or it goes to the central bank, borrows from the central bank an additional amount of central bank money to give it to bank A. Okay, these are the 3 solutions that are available to banks. Now in 2008, as you may remember, after the bankruptcy of Lehman Brothers, the 15th of September of 2008, the interbank markets in almost all industrialized countries were dead. So no bank was ready to lend a penny to another bank because they were perfectly aware of the fact that if Lehman Brothers could die, then everybody could die the day after. Okay? So the interbank markets were all paralyzed, and there were unique solutions which were financial markets, but financial markets for the same reason were also dead. So the unique remaining solution were the central banks. And that's why you see the tremendous increase of M0 that I showed you in 2008, 2010, because when there is a huge lack of confidence among banks, the unique remaining solution is that the central bank creates the additional amount of money that help bank B to honor its transaction towards bank A. Okay? The main point of this rewriting of the story is that it's not, to put it this way, it's not loans that create credit, but it's credits that create loans. Okay? First of all, you have credit. Bank A creates money by making a credit, and afterwards the whole system adapts so that we have the money for this. When you go to your banker to ask for money in order to borrow money, let's say to buy a flat, and the banker thinks of it and he says, well, let me think whether I have the money to do this. He's not meditating about whether he has gold somewhere, in the ground floor of the bank, because gold, as you know, is no more a backup for money. It's not also the case that he's thinking about whether he has the banknotes somewhere in a vault, in the ground floor. He's just thinking about your ability to pay back your money. That is, he's thinking about the ability to destroy the money that he will create for you, provided he gives you the loan you are asking for. Okay? Because of course, when there is a credit emission, there is money creation, and when you pay back your debt, there is money destruction. Okay? But it turns out that in history, there are always more, or almost always more credit than debts being paid back. Okay? So that the quantity of money always increases. Okay? So since I still have 10 minutes left, Jean-Marc?
Yes.
Okay. One word about inflation. I don't have time to, one word about inflation. So now you understand where I'm going to, namely to finance the energy shift, we should just help banks use the power to create money and to put this money in the right place. Okay? This is an entirely different viewpoint from the standard viewpoint that says we should find money from somewhere that already exists and put it in the right place. It's true that there is a huge amount of money on Earth today. We never had so much money available, but this money is trapped in the financial markets, which promise huge amount of returns. The energy shift will never provide these returns, so we have to find another way. And my viewpoint is that we should just use the money creation power that banks have. This is the main difference between a bank and a financial institution that is not a bank. Let's say a hedge fund. A hedge fund cannot create money. A hedge fund is just an intermediary. It takes money from one place and put it in another place, whereas a bank can create money per definition. That's why in order to create a bank, you need a license from the state. It's not as if you were opening an office as a psychoanalyst. You can decide I'm a psychoanalyst. You don't need any license for this. But you decide I'm a bank, you need a license. You need the state to give you the right to create money. Okay? Now, you will necessarily say, but money creation is very dangerous because it's inflationary. So how gosh can you think of creating money to finance the energy shift? This will induce a tremendous inflation, and that's irresponsible. Okay? I'm thinking of my friend from Germany. There are a lot of people in Germany thinking this, but also in France. It's not just... okay? Then for this, to understand this, we have to go back to the famous Fisher's equation, which is the quantity theory of money. Here you have the quantity of money available, let's say M1 or M2 or M3. V is the velocity of money, P is the level of prices, and capital T is the volume of real transactions. Okay? Sorry?
It's the wrong way of expressing the law of perfect gases.
Yeah, I know. It has, I know. It has nothing to do with the law of perfect gases. But I know that some people make a confusion. Or they believe, oh gosh, this is serious because it looks like, the law of perfect gases, so therefore it should be serious. But, okay. The usual way to understand it is to say V in the short run is constant, okay? Capital T in the short run is constant. Therefore, when you increase capital M, you will necessarily increase P. And this leads to the false conclusion that every monetary creation must be inflationary. Of course, you understand immediately that this is wrong, because if you change capital M, there is no reason for capital T to remain constant. Actually, capital T is endogenous, P is endogenous, and even V is endogenous. Everything is endogenous. So it might be the case that you increase the quantity of money, and this does not increase the level of prices. If you, with other words, if you create money for the energy shift, and this allows the right increase in real transactions, then this cannot increase prices, provided V is constant. You understand this? So the point is it possible to organize the energy shift in such a way that the money you will create for this will also induce an increase of real transactions that will ensure that we won't have too much inflation. Okay? So this is just a hint to show that the velocity of money is not constant, etc. So I don't have time to... okay. Yeah, just one word for this. This is an excerpt from the second part of Faustus from Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. Once you have understood all this, the natural reaction would be to say what we need is a public bank that creates money in the right direction to finance the energy shift. And this is exactly what I thought 2 years ago, or 1 year and a half ago, when French President Hollande said, I want to create a public bank in order to finance new long-term investments in France. Okay? But meanwhile, I realized that this is understood, creating a public bank, this is understood, at least in France, but I guess it's also the case in the UK or in Germany, as something like the original sin. And this is an example of that. When I came to Frankfurt am Main, to the Bundesbank, the German central bank, not the European central bank, okay? I had a seminar over there, and then I saw on the walls where civil servants are working every day, this excerpt, which is which comes from Goethe's work, where you have the emperor who has a lot of debts, and he's not able to pay his debts. Okay, so it is not a new story. Okay, and then there is a guy who comes to him and says, "Well, sir, there is a very easy way to solve your problems. You just have to print money. Just create money for free. It costs nothing, and you will solve your problem." Okay, and guess who is telling this to the emperor? In Faust's, in Goethe's work, it's the devil, Mephistopheles. So suppose you are a civil servant, you go working every day, and every day, okay, so after 40 years you are convinced that printing money when you are the king is just a sin, okay? And a lot of people believe this. Why? They believe that if the state will print money, this will create inflation, okay? Because it's true that politicians are non-responsible, they don't know what to do when they print money, etc., etc. And in addition to that, everybody knows that creating money is always inflationary, etc., etc. You see? But you understand now that all these reasonings are wrong. Okay? One simple example from history, German hyperinflation in 1923 has nothing to do with an explosion of public expenditures. Okay? Dr. Schacht, between 33 and 37, financed a huge New Deal in Germany, okay, with no inflation, thanks to a massive public money creation. Just a few historians dare to speak about this, because of the political side of this issue. But as an economist, we should study this period, okay? And Hitler took power 3 years after a deflationary policy put into practice by Chancellor Brüning, not after the hyperinflation. And in France, you still have a lot of people believing, if you print money, this will induce inflation. If you have inflation, this will sooner or later lead to hyperinflation. Hyperinflation means Hitler comes on power the day after, But everything in this reasoning is wrong. Creating money is not necessarily inflationary. Inflation does not necessarily lead to hyperinflation. Hyperinflation has nothing to do with Hitler. Okay? So, now my third part is about the c'est où déjà? Ah yeah, here. Yeah. So the proposal I made for the committee last year on the national debate for the energy shift. Okay. So the main problem is the following. It's easy to understand. You want to organize the retrofitting of all the public buildings in France, and for this you need approximately 10 billion euros every year. Okay, it's not a huge amount. Remember that the ECB created 1,000 billions within 1 second in February 2012 in order to save the banks. Here we need 10 billions in France every year. Okay, but nevertheless, as you guess, it's not that easy to find. So how do you do this? So I don't have time enough to. The main idea came from something that has already been put into practice, namely the SFEF, Société de Financement de l'Économie Française, in 2008. This is a very interesting, fascinating point of history. At this time, as I said earlier, in 2008, you remember the interbank market was entirely dead. If the interbank market is dead, you understand that Bank B and Bank A never can net their positions. If they cannot net the positions, a bank can no more emit credit. If there is no credit, there is nothing. Everybody dies. Okay? So within 3 days, 3 or 4 French civil servants created the SFEF. What is the SFEF? It was a private society, not a bank, private society, which is allowed to give loans to banks with the public guarantee. So the SFEF can borrow money on markets. The debt of the SFEF is a private debt because the SFEF is a private society. But nevertheless, the SFEF has the right to give loans to banks with a public guarantee. That is, if Bank B receiving a loan from the SFEF does not pay it back, then the taxpayers will pay it back. Okay? The trick here is that you have a private society which is allowed to use the public guarantee, so that the debt of the SFEF is a private debt. It does not increase the public debt of the state. Get it? So what I propose is to use exactly the same trick to finance the energy shift.
Is the SFEF still alive?
The SFEF, no, yeah, the SFEF is still alive. Michel Condessus, the former CEO of IMF, was the head of the SFEF, but now there was a law at the end of 2009 that says that the SFEF is no more allowed to operate. That is, the banks decided this was just for us, nobody can use it except for us. Okay? Meanwhile, within 1 year, the SFEF succeeded in borrowing 70 billion euros on markets to give it to the banks. 70 billions, okay? Which is not nothing. And we just need 10 billions. So,
Sorry.
yeah.
Sorry. Has it been reimbursed, or is it the taxpayer doing it?
No, it has been reimbursed entirely. And actually, at the end of 2008, the French state gave 280 billion euros as a public guarantee for the banks. So it could have cost 280 billion euros. Fortunately, it did not. It's not like in the UK. We did not have a huge bankruptcy. We have Dexia now, okay? Dexia costed already 12 billion euros to the taxpayers. But at this time, we didn't have, fortunately, any big bankruptcy, okay? But the point here is to understand that if we want to save banks, we are very creative. So why not be so creative to save the planet, okay? So the main idea is the following. You have the sister of the SFEF, the ESFA, okay, which is a private society with a small amount of capital. It plays no role in the story, okay. The state can put a little bit of money, okay, but it has a minority, so it's a private society. Who will put money? The industry that is interested in the energy shift, like the retrofitting of buildings, and the banks. Because the whole process is very interesting for the banks, and I will explain why, and I will stop here. The private banks give loans to the transition, let's say retrofitting of public buildings. The ESFA, you don't see it, but here there is an arrow, okay, gives the public guarantee to these loans. That is, the state says, we are confident that they will be able to pay back. If they don't, taxpayer will pay. But this guarantee does not impact the public debt of France. That's the main trick, okay? Meanwhile, the ESFA itself borrows money on financial markets. The debt of the ESFA is a private debt with public guarantee, okay? And the ESFA uses this money to lend again to the real economy for those projects that are so non-rentable that even with the public guarantee, the bank don't want to give money for this, okay? For the very poor and bad public buildings, for which even with the public guarantee, the banks are not interested in creating money, then for this, the ESFA borrows money here and lend it to the right person. And who will lend money to the ESFA? Partly the banks themselves. Why? Because when the bank here lends money to the ESFA, it is buying the debt of the ESFA. This is a private debt, but with public guarantee. So it has a very good grade, something like AA+ or AA, okay? And then the bank here can use this asset as a collateral in order to get money from the central bank, the ECB. Because I didn't have time to mention it earlier, but you remember there were 3 options for Bank B in order to get central bank money. First option, remember, this was the interbank market. Second option, the financial market. Third option, the central bank. If you are a bank and you go to the central bank and you say, I need more money, the central bank is forced to give you this money, but at a certain price. This price depends upon the interest rate that is chosen by the central bank and the collateral requirement. That is, the central bank says to the bank, okay, I give you money, I create money from nothing, ex nihilo for you, but you have to give me something like an asset, a collateral, in case you would not be able to pay back your debt to me, okay? And maybe you know that since 2008, the collateral requirement of the ECB has reduced tremendously. Since it's every day more difficult for the banks to put good assets as collateral, then the ECB says, okay, I know you don't have any assets anymore, so I will accept very, very bad assets as collateral. Like, for instance, Greek public debt. Even Greek public debt can be used today as a collateral for a bank in order to get money from the central bank. So here, we offer something like French public debt, which is much better. And if we were to do it in Germany, here they would get German public debt, even better. Okay? So the banks are very interested in this process. So they get assets which are very valuable for them. Okay? You know that today the main problem of the banks or even the investors in the world is to find good public debt in euros. Here you offer good public debt in euros, except that it's not public debt. You understand? Why is it not public debt? Because it's private debt with public guarantee, which is entirely different. Okay? And now there is a second reason why the banks might be very interested in the whole process, which is the following. Here the banks give loans to, let's say, the companies that will do the retrofitting of buildings. Okay? These loans, they have the public guarantee. I will stop in 30 seconds. Which means that according to Basel III requirements, maybe you know a little bit of Basel III requirements, these are requirements that are that the banks are asked to fulfill in order to be able to give the loans. Okay? And according to these requirements, if you make you make a credit as a bank with a public guarantee, then this costs almost nothing in terms of capital for the bank. So the banks are very, very highly interested in having the ability to make credits with public guarantees because this costs nothing, almost nothing for the banks. So they gain here and they gain here. So it's a win-win strategy for the banks and for us, because at the end of the day we have a financing, 10 billions, why not, for the retrofitting of public buildings. Okay, thank you.